Well, hello plant lovers, it is Matthew in Melbourne. Welcome you to my channel. Thanks for finding me in this very crowded YouTube world of orchid videos. Here, I try to grow cold, cool, intermediate orchids here in Melbourne without really much help from any greenhouses or grow lights, humidifiers, no equipment. Really just me and them, inside, outside, or not at all. So, plant lovers of the world, if that sounds like your conditions and you're vaguely interested, hit subscribe. I post every week on a Friday, and if you hit the notification bell, you'll know exactly when my missive pings into the YouTube ether. And today, it's kind of a work in progress follow-up that kind of came to nothing. And this is what happens when you grow orchids. Sometimes nothing. Anyway, you know what? I'm going to pull the camera back a little bit so we can just get a sense of the scale of what we're looking at. There we are. So this, plant lovers, is a Thunia, and it is Thunia marshalliana. That's on the tag. But of course, things have changed, and it is now accepted by Q as marshalliana alba. And there were various forms, and they've all been pushed together under that one name now, marshalliana alba. Now I've got some books here, which is fantastic, which we'll get to. But firstly, this has been a bit of a cyclical series of videos. So I first got this orchid almost a year ago, actually, to the day, because it's April. I'm filming this here in Melbourne, which is autumn in the Southern Hemisphere. And I bought this on eBay. It's not a very common orchid to find, Thunia. So I bought it, and obviously, given the nature of it, very tricky thing to ship. And the top was snapped off, which is, you know, fine. That's what happens. No issue there. So I've just maintained it until it goes into dormancy. So Thunia goes into a hard dormancy like, say, Catasetum types or some of the tropical calanthes, which drop all the leaves, go into a hard dormancy. You keep them dry until you get the new shoot appearing in spring, and then you vigorously water and feed them because they have a huge amount of growth to do in a short period of time. So this orchid follows that same principle. So I bought it at the end of that cycle when it was about to go into dormancy. So the fact that it was damaged was neither here nor there. And I've got this footage here of when I first received it. And as you can see, I'd left it to go a bit scabby, and it certainly was looking scabby. All its leaves have started to turn. You can see the damage at the top. And I very foolishly, plant lovers, cut that stem off. First rookie mistake. I realize now I should have just left that until well into the following season when the new growth was very established, and then trimmed it off. Anyway, I also figured out, or was told by many viewers, that you can propagate from that stem actually, which I didn't do. I threw it away. Anyway, I then kept it cool and dry over winter, so it just sat outside here in Melbourne. The natural habitat for this orchid is sort of the Himalayan area and then down through the Malay Peninsula. So it's a high-ish altitude, so it is a cool grower, but it comes from that part of the world which has a very monsoonal cycle. So it does have a drier winter. So it kind of doesn't matter what your winter conditions are as long as you keep it dry, because it's dormant. It doesn't matter if it gets really cold. Obviously, it doesn't want to freeze, but for me outside here, keeping it dry and cool was fine. And then, like the other types of orchids we mentioned, you see the green shoot appearing, which you can see on this video here, when I decided to repot it. So that was early spring, and the minute I saw the shoot appearing, I took out that plant, had a look at the roots, which were still kind of vigorous, so I didn't really break those apart, and I repotted it in this charming old terracotta pot, which I got from a flea market, and I used a terrestrial mix. Now this is a terrestrial orchid largely, so it grows at ground level, and I used a mix that I sort of made up, which was basically an out of the bag orchid mix with then the addition of some regular potting compost and some broken down manure. So the type that you get in bags from garden centres, nurseries, hardware stores. So a really rich organic mix, still relatively freeze draining because I don't want to be boggy and really watered down in their medium, but they do want a lot of water. But I think it needs, but it's better that it sort of flows quite quickly, that you're watering it, it drains, watering it drains. So relatively free draining, but very nutrient rich. And I put a lot of slow release fertilizer pellets into that mix as well. So there was a lot of nutrient going on in there because this plant does a lot of growing in a short space of time. So that was the repotting. I then put it in a very bright indirect spot. So it's under cover, under a polycarbonate roof, but I found the brightest spot where you'd grow, say, cattleyas or something like that that wants really strong light. and really began to ramp up the watering and the feed. And then I made this video, which was in early summer at that point. Well, plant lovers, I was just making a Masavalia video and I thought I'll just give you a little bit of an update on Thunia marshalliana. So as you can see, I chopped off that stem too early, but now I know. I also know that you can propagate from those stems really easily, but now I know, then I didn't. But I just wanted to show you the growth. So that is about, what, 7 centimeters? So it's about 4-ish inches. It is late spring and I'm keeping it relatively moist and I am feeding it a lot. So there's organic fertilizer in this mix as well as blood and bone. There is slow release fertilizer. The mix is a terrestrial mix. So I use out of the bag orchid mix, which I would use for cymbidiums and aroids. In with that, I've mixed a little bit of regular compost that you'd use for a normal perennial plant and a little bit of organic fertilizer, i.e. manure. So it's free draining but nutrient rich. And then most waterings I am trying to give it some kind of liquid food or tonic. And as you can see, looking quite good so far. Anyway, so this is our late spring update on Thunia. They are supposed to grow very quickly and it should be flowering towards the end of summer. So another 3-ish months. Anyway, let's see how we go. I'm not sure that this is going to have enough energy to bloom because I do think I cut that stem off too soon in the piece. But anyway, we live and learn, plant lovers. I'm really thrilled though that it has re-shot for me because I have killed one before. Anyway, let's catch up with this in a few months' time. See you later. Hello plant lovers, it is our Thunia Midsummer check-in. It is early January in 2025. This is Thunia marshalliana, there you go. And I have been having a go with this. So as per the other videos, I probably chopped off the stem too soon. Thank you, I've learned that lesson. Now it's midsummer and I've got probably about 30 centimeters, about 1 foot of growth, as you can see there, and very lovely growth it is too. I am watering it a lot and I am feeding it. I'm trying to feed it at least once a week, but at least every sort of 2 or 3 waterings. Liquid fertilizer, various sorts, slow release fertilizer, bit of everything. It's got some manure mixed into a loose mix as well. So there's a lot going on for this plant. So far, so good. I did think it might grow faster, but whatever. They're supposed to flower, I guess, by the end of summer here. So there's still quite a couple of months to go. Anyway, so far, so good. The leaves are looking very healthy. It's in bright indirect light. It's always moist. I'm not letting it dry out. So far, so good. Let's see if I get a flower from this. But here we are, midsummer, and all is well. Let's see what happens in a few months' time. You can see how hot it was from the singlet. Anyway, so that's where we were up to then. So the plant was about so high and now it's really finished its growing. It is April here, which is autumn. If this was going to flower, it would have flowered in January for me, which is New Year, sort of midsummer in Australia. It didn't, but I think I set it back with that pruning. And I also think perhaps the plant, who knows kind of what it was divided from in the first place and whether in fact it was a propagation from a stem, and maybe it just needs a bit of a year or two to get its oomph on. Anyway, no hint of a bud, but it was interesting to find out that Thunia marshalliana has changed its name. Now, so happens I found this fantastic book which is called An Introduction to the Orchids of Asia by Mark L. Isaac Williams, and there you can see the book there. It's fantastic because Mark L. Isaac Williams is a real orchid hunter and he actually has photographed everything in situ. So these are not photographs of people's greenhouse collections of orchids. They're pictures of orchids in the wild and illustrations, obviously, drawn illustrations. But the photography is all plants in situ, which is so hard to find and so interesting. That's the Thunia, which is perhaps not that revealing because it's a close-up of the flower. But there are a few kind of tidbits here about the growth of it. Firstly, it was named in honor of Count Franz A. von Thun of Tetschin in Bohemia. So there you go, that's where the Thun comes from. And obviously, marshalliana was named after Mr. Marshall, and now it's called alba, which just refers to the fact that the flower is largely white. So here's a little paragraph here. It is the current season's new growth which develops the flowers, after which all the leaves drop, but the thick stem remains as support to the young growth through the following seasons. In cultivation, these stems may be used for propagation. And then he does mention Thunia alba particularly, that he found this species, Thunia alba, growing on a large, dry, exposed boulder in the mountains of Nepal at an altitude of over 1,200 meters. So quite exposed, quite sunny. Now, the other thing is, not a lot of information about Thunias. The flowers are stunning, so it's a hard thing to find anything about, but I did find this amazing article by the Orchid Society's Council of Victoria. I'll put the link below, and it's literally called Growing Thunias in Melbourne, which is amazing. I will say though that it's not that definitive, because it basically says you can do this, but other people do that, and it's quite successful. So like all things, you've got to try and figure out your own way, but I'll put the link because it is quite interesting. And his point is that the flowers emerge in the new year, so in early January, midsummer here in the southern hemisphere. So if mine was going to flower, it would have. And now we're in autumn, and it's really going to start going into its dormancy period. So that boat has sailed. But now another book for us, which is Growing Orchids. This is a 4-volume series by J.N. Rentoul, and we have spoke about this many a time. There are 4 volumes, one of which is totally about Australian orchids. Fantastic. So happens I was in an op shop thrift store not that long ago, and I saw this volume for $2 in that op shop. Amazing. Now, he actually doesn't have a chapter on Thunia because it's, you know, a little obscure. He just has that little paragraph. There's a photograph of the flower, which you can see there. Very, very beautiful. You can see why I was delighted to get one. Now, his point is this Asian orchid with bamboo-like pseudobulbs, yes, from the new growth of which the flowers emerge, yes, should be cultivated in similar fashion to calanthes. Interesting. That's the tropical calanthes, though, because there are Asian cooler climate calanthes which don't have the same conditions anyway. There's that asterisk. So it grows fast in a warm growing period, and it wants enriched, coarse, loamy compost. The plants go into a marked dormant phase, and as the new growth show roots, plants should be repotted into new compost. So I got all that right. Who knows, plant lovers, who knows quite why we didn't get a bloom this year. Now, in the Orchid Society Council of Victoria article, the writer does point out that some people insist that they will only flower in direct light, and others that a little bit of shade, or basically a shade house, polycarbonate roof, is fine. And we can see that Mr. Isaac Williams found his growing in full sun on a rock in Nepal, as you do. So I would say the best compromise for that is bright indirect light, but perhaps next year I will actually try putting it outside in direct sun, treating it like a perennial plant. So in fact, I think I will, plant lovers. I'll try that. So the only other thing is plenty of water and food in this growing period. So really, once those roots have appeared, water and feed it like you do those tropical calanthes, and as you do catasetum type of orchids. Get as much growth as you can. They can actually grow a lot taller. So I wonder if this is really still juvenile and not getting into its full swing yet. But I'm happy that we got this amount of growth in year 1 for me. Of course, the aim of the game is to get the flowers, and they're quite large and pendulous. Don't last very long, but I can't wait for this to flower. When it does, we shall really ring all the bells. It's a very handsome thing, isn't it? Odd looking plant, very odd looking plant. Soft leaves too, so they're not at all rubbery or hard. It's a very fine, almost grass-like leaf actually. Interesting orchid. But there we are. So nothing really to share with you other than it's been a year of green growth. So I will wait for the leaves to start to turn, and then I will really stop watering it, put it into hard dormancy, keep it dry and cool again over winter, wait till the new growth. I will repot it in a similar mix, just adding lots of really juicy organic based compost for it to feed off. And then I'm going to put it in full sun out in the garden, I think, and see what that does this year, next year, in fact. Anyway, there we are, plant lovers. So that's our Thunia epic cycle of several videos over the last 12 months. It's still alive. I think I know a little bit more about how to look after it this year. So let's see if I can get it to bloom next year. And if I do, of course, we will do another follow-up, but there's the long shot of it. Quite tall. Anyway, plant lovers, I hope your orchid experiments are going well, and if you want to know what mine might be next year, hit subscribe because I post every week on a Friday. As you can see, amateur ramblings, sometimes they are cul-de-sacs that go nowhere except the compost bin, but at least this is still alive. So I very much look forward to seeing you next week. Take care wherever you are, and I'll join you on Friday for another episode. See you then.